Ghana's PPP journey began in the early 2000s. Until recently, however, there was no comprehensive legal framework governing these partnerships. In 2011, the government introduced a national PPP policy to guide the structuring and implementation of projects. In the year 2020, Parliament passed and the President assented to Act 1039, which provides a structured legal framework for PPPs. Mr. Speaker, it's fair to say that the PPP ecosystem in Ghana is still in its nascent phases. By leveraging private sector capital, technical expertise, and innovation, PPPs can deliver essential projects more effectively, more efficiently as well, while reducing the financial burden on the government. We observe, however, Mr. Speaker, that the development of further PPPs are facing some challenges. And there's a low level of awareness and preference for PPPs within both the public and the private sector. Most private and public institutions prefer outright contracts between the government and private sector players, where the private sector delivers and the government is obliged to pay. And as a result, project promoters hardly prefer PPP models. There's limited capacity for structuring, modeling, and negotiating PPP transactions. Even where there exists an appetite for a PPP structure, there's limited capacity in modeling and negotiation, both on the private sector side and then on the public sector side. Regulatory and bureaucratic bottlenecks inherent in the current PPP Act slow down the process of negotiating and executing transactions. Anecdotal evidence suggests in some cases that it takes close to a year to even be able to put one project together. The very nature of PPP projects apportion part of the financing and management risk to the private sector partners. These high risks are then compounded by other national risks like the macro risks of inflation and exchange rate depreciation, and this discourages a lot of private sector players. If we are going to mainstream PPPs in delivering on the infrastructure and public service deficits in this country, a few recommendations that will urge on the government to consider. First, we need to improve the level of awareness and acceptability of PPPs. It's important for increased public and stakeholder engagement to mainstream PPPs in infrastructure and service delivery. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we have to improve specialized PPP capacity enhancement. A third recommendation, Mr. Speaker, is that we have to de-risk investments and ensure bankability. We've got to work more to introduce credit enhancement mechanisms such as government-backed guarantees to attract investors. Mr. Speaker, the PPP Act itself, though new, may require some immediate amendment to some sections and enforcement of others. And I'll raise a few examples. Section 77 of the PPP Act has to be made more robust to reduce some of the bottlenecks in project implementation when it comes to the project development facility. The regulations to the Act itself also need to be passed quite quickly to fill the gray areas and simplify implementation.